Welcome to Everything Auspisticism. I'm Visionary Paracosmos. This Homestuck video essay seeks to summarize and interpret information about auspisticism using the webcomic and related media when needed. I often see other fans, even those who are particularly interested in quadrants, lamenting a lack of information about auspisticism. So, I took the liberty of rounding it all up and putting it in a video format. Without further ado, here is everything auspisticism. Auspisticism, the ashen quadrant, is the black conciliatory quadrant. We'll get into what black and conciliatory mean later. Auspisticism is represented by a black or gray clubs card suit symbol. Like the other quadrants, trolls will, quote, feel strongly compelled to find balance and, quote, seek gratifying relationships, end quote, in the ashen quadrant. Unlike other quadrants, the ashen quadrant is a three-way relationship rather than a two-person relationship. Two trolls will be, quote, locked in a feud or some otherwise contentious relationship, end quote, when the third troll, the auspicious, quote, mediates between the two, playing the role of a peacekeeper and preventing the feud from boiling over into a fully collisionous rivalry, end quote. Ashen relationship is not one person experiencing ashen feelings towards other people who feel another way about each other. Both the auspicious and the two other parties must feel ashen to make an auspisticism. The auspicious helps, quote, stabilize particularly turbulent relationships, end quote. Especially ones that involve volatile vacillation, would lead to infidelity, and or involve a difference in romantic feelings, i.e. one troll feels red while the other feels black. These kinds of lesser feuds are common in troll culture, thus there is a great need for auspisticism. Auspisticism is one of the black quadrants. Black romance, or black rom, is, quote, rooted in the strongly negative, end quote. This is also known as hate, hostility, and antipathy. An auspisticism and other types of troll relationships are generally considered mutually exclusive. This is first illustrated by Aridin trying to turn a collisionous relationship ashen. Quote, you don't want to be our auspicious because you don't want to get locked into that sort of relationship with her. I can respect that, end quote. It is later reinforced by Thetheri when Aridin tries to turn her flesh relationship ashen. Quote, don't try to provoke him. It's not like I don't know what you're doing. You keep trying to spark a rivalry with him to get me to auspisticize between you two and pull us out of our quadrant. It is the oldest and lamest trick in the book. It didn't work then, and it won't work now, end quote. So, while a relationship that is initially flush or pitch may turn ashen, they are generally considered separate by trolls. Auspisticism is one of the conciliatory quadrants, once called the pale quadrants by Vriska. Given how pale has otherwise been used to refer to Moira allegiance alone, I would suggest against using this as a synonym for conciliatory. Conciliatory simply means a romantic relationship that has no direct bearing on the reproductive cycle. One of the distinguishing factors trolls tend to consider when contrasting pale and ashen romance is that ashen romance, quote, addresses conciliatory romantic feelings not directed at a single person, but at two people who are presently in such a contentious relationship, end quote. Conciliatory romance is, quote, closely likened to platonic relationships by human standards, end quote. This does not mean auspisticism is a platonic relationship, as it is consistently referred to as a romantic relationship elsewhere throughout Homestuck. Remember, this is an alien culture with their own standards of romance. They don't abide by human standards. And even if they did abide by human standards, a relationship can be fully romantic and emotionally satisfying without having sex. Trolls generally have a, quote, cultural preoccupation with romantic destiny, end quote, and believe, quote, strongly that each quadrant holds one and only one true pairing for them, end quote. In the case of auspsticism, they believe there is a, quote, triad of trolls somewhere in the cosmos that were made for each other, end quote. Essentially, most trolls believe in soulmates. Despite this, there seems to be multiple social pressures for auspsticizing, so it isn't purely an idealized romance. One pressure is to prevent lesser rivalries from contributing to the gene pool, as, quote, especially strong mate split and kismesis pairings yield more dominant genetic material. The more powerful the complement or potent the rivalry, the more dominant the genes, end quote. This, frankly, is eugenics, and very, very, very likely to simply be a result of the Alternian Empire's propaganda. Another social pressure is to prevent or work through social tensions. Rose and Kanaya talk about this on The Meteor, when Rose admits to wanting to mediate between Gamzee and Terezi. Quote, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that whole arrangement getting into territory of social taboo? This could create a schism in our group that we could all be torn apart, end quote. The auspistice conciliates not because the parties are a bad collisionist match, but because they could destroy the social ecosystem around them. Ashen flirting is not specifically examined in the comic, but it is described in the author commentary. Quote, you have to be pretty alert to tell when someone is hitting on you in the club's quadrant. It's subtle enough to miss easily. Hey, could you tell that bastard over there he's a bastard for me? And don't you dare think of watering down my message of hate for me so as to moderate this unpleasant rivalry I'm placing you in the middle of. Okay, that's an obvious club solicitation, but usually they don't sound like that. You know how sometimes in bar fights, there's the guy who wants to start a fight, but he tries to get his friends to hold him back? That's textbook solicitation in the Ashen quadrant. Apparently, rowdy drunken bros do it all the time. End quote. Essentially, encouraging a potential auspistice to mitigate arguments and fights is part of what ashen flirting is about. We can see a little deeper into black flirting more broadly when John and Karkat talk about black romantic crushes. Karkat describes frustration, negative emotions, negative feelings, and hot-headed feelings being the essence of black romance, with admiration and subtle positives creating tension by aggravating factors like infuriating flaws. He also discusses how the positives are also the basis for red feelings should vacillation occur, which we know is common in ashen romance. So, it wouldn't be uncommon for someone to acknowledge the positive traits of their auspicious or other ashen partner. One of the best insights we have into ashen dating comes from the quadrant master himself, Karkat. Quote, if I had been on the ball and auspicized between Kanaya and Rose, Kanaya would have had the time to auspicize between Terezi and Gamzee. End quote. This quote could have several different implications, and any or all of them could be true at the same time. Firstly, this could imply that it's socially acceptable to be in two separate auspisticisms so long as the individual is engaging in different roles, i.e., a mediated party in one and an auspicious in the other. This is antithetical to the social perception of having a fated trio, so it is less likely. Secondly, this could imply that short-lived auspisticisms are common, which would match what we know about there being enough lesser rivalries that there is a great need for auspistices. This is also supported by the continuous assertion that, quote, widespread black infidelity, end quote, is a significant issue within troll culture, both on page 2397 and in the author commentary on page 313 of Book 4. Thirdly, This could mean nothing, and simply be Karkat trying to force all the solutions to problems into the paradigm of troll romance. Many of you may expect this section to be full of relationships involving Kanaya. However, there's a lot to say about her relationship to auspsiticism, which really expands past the scope of this video essay. So instead, I will discuss other implied ashen ships. The ones I'm examining here are Jade Cat, Solix Nepeta and Karkat, and Vriska's auspsticisms. We'll start with Jade Cat. Even the shipper extraordinaire, Nepeta, sees that Ashen Jade Cat is a viable ship. In Equius Seek the High Blood, she is depicted Jade mediating between past and future Karkat. Cute, right? Supporting this, in Kanaya Return to the Core, Karkat exhibits both positive and negative feelings towards Jade. Quote, "I want a password right now, or I will direct my cold laser hate stare through your bulge from behind my goofy-ass goggly girl glasses." Okay, yes, I'll say she's a lot more decent than I gave her credit for originally. End quote. Others seem to also agree with me. Dave accuses Karkat of, quote, slobbering all over Jade, end quote, on page 2852, and Kanaya says it sounds like Karkat likes Jade during Return to the Core. Karkat even nearly confesses to having feelings for Jade at one point on page 4101. Likewise, Jade also expresses finding Karkat's trollish demeanor charming on page 3415. It's sufficient to say that the two of them have mutual feelings that run both positive and negative. Furthermore, both of them have mediated between the other and another version of themselves. Jade mediates between past and future Karkat from pages 2851 to 2852. Similarly, Karkat mediates between Jade and Jade Sprite from page 3250 to 3253. It is nigh impossible for me to believe that a troll would see this relationship and interpret Jade and Karkat's feelings as anything other than ashen. After you've finished this video, the first recommendation I have for everyone is for you to immediately go to read the print-only Paradox Space comic Fiduspan, which can be read at Homestuck.net. In the story, it's textually and visually acknowledged that Nepeta, Solix, and Karkat are ashen flirting, starting as early as page 6 when Karkat and Solix argue, with Nepeta being the only one breaking their fight up. And it's solidified on the final page where an ashen symbol can be seen by Nepeta as they all walk away. Karkat and Solix's public arguing could be seen as a brazen ashen solicitation. And although Nepeta expresses distaste for the idea of being ashen for the two of them, it is more likely that this is due to her flesh crush on Karkat rather than any issue she has with the ashen quadrant. On page 7508, Kanaya noted Vriska's propensity for auspisticism and said that she, quote, probably diffused a lot of unpleasant situations before they started, end quote, during the course of the meteor trip. Between this and Vriska alluding to ashen liaisons, it is implied that Vriska engaged in several short-term auspisticisms. Based on the Vriskagram update, it can be inferred that those include Vriska mediating between Gamzee and Terezi and between Rose and Kanaya. Quote, "It's all pretty straightforward, really." End quote. Page 7490. I like seeing the new directions that people take ashen romance. So if there's an idea of yours that doesn't really fit what I've gone over here, feel free to disregard this and have fun. That's what fandom is about. Anyways, have a nice day, and thank you for watching.